what I found was our tech team specifically, but also the worship team, didn't have any like formal training, but didn't have like any training at all. So it was like, okay, how do we like, teach the people that are already on the sound team what gain structure is? And like, how do we accelerate that? Lyrics operators don't know, like had never heard of Pro Presenter. I wanted to come in and bring those kind of standardized things to the team. Let's strip it back. Let's take 25 songs for this 3 to 4 month period, and let's just, as a band, let's learn these really, really, really well. Let's play together really well, even if it means we're not playing all the fancy parts, we're not like playing crazy licks on pianos. Once we're just hitting those chords well, playing it simply, and just letting the church learn all these songs, it kind of really helped the team learn them, and then the church learn them as well.
Sam Clarke, welcome to the Churchfront podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Happy to have you today. Before we get going, Sam used to be an Accelerator student in worship ministry school, so I invited him here today to share his story with our audience. And Sam, before we get going, why don't you take some time, introduce yourself, kind of who you are, what you do, and what you're up to these days.
Hi guys. Thanks for having me, Luke. I'm Sam. I'm from Dublin, Ireland, and I work at a church here called Dunleary Evangelical Church. And my role title is digital media coordinator, which really means I have a lot of hats. I kind of look after all in-person production, our stream, all the social media, web, all that fun stuff. Yeah. So that's me.
I love it. How long have you been at the church that you are currently serving at?
I came here last February, so it's literally been 12 months now. Yeah.
I love it. On staff the whole time, right? You kind of took this job.
I came here on staff.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were in a transition period, myself and my wife, and we were looking for a new church, and this role came up, and it was just perfect for us. So yeah, we've been loving it.
In Ireland, what's the way that, how did you find the job? Did you know people, at the church already? Is there a kind of a staffing website that you guys use to get connected there? Or what was the connection to you joining that church
It was literally friend of a friend was like, hey, I think you might be a good fit for this. Do you want, like, what do you think? And then I just like met with the pastor, and he was like, yeah, cool. It's pretty low key. Staff in churches in Ireland is like, it's pretty minimal here. I know you guys in the States, there's always like loads of different places to go and get jobs. But I think in the Republic of Ireland, that I know of, there might be one or two other people that are employed full-time in production. So it's really just a huge blessing to get to do this. And it was really a response for the church out of COVID. They were really wanting to push like online, and they didn't have the volunteers in the church. They were like, okay, are we going to go with it? Yes. Cool. Let's invest and just get someone full-time to do it well. So
cool.
It's been a really, really great blessing to get to do it.
Yeah, it's cool to see the church kind of take charge with that initiative and actually kind of put their money where their mouth is in terms of allocating staff time and really, pursuing those goals. What did you do before ministry, Sam? What was your role, or what was your job like before you hopped into the production role here?
Yeah, so obviously I grew up in a church, and kind of from 14, 15 on, I was, behind the sound desk and learning what it was to work in churches and volunteer. So during the pandemic, so right before the pandemic happened, I was still in university, and I was studying a design degree. And during that time, I was volunteering in churches. And so I kind of like learned a lot in graphics and stuff. And then during the pandemic, while I was at home, I ended up actually volunteering in some churches doing work, and then freelancing. So doing freelance work in design. And then kind of post pandemic, I started working in a production company. So freelancing for them and for those other people, but mainly for one of the bigger corporate production companies in Ireland. So we were doing, LED wall installs and lots of just different corporate events, streaming, and I learned a lot there. So then when this role came up with the church, I kind of leveraged my experience with both areas of working in church and working in production to I think hopefully made a good impact here. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What a cool opportunity. If you don't mind me
Mhm.
asking, what was kind of the um I don't know, maybe the pulse in Ireland during the pandemic? Like you're running events or you're doing LED wall installs. Like, was there a lot of stuff happening, or I mean, as you were navigating those production gigs and things like that, what was kind of I don't know, the normal rhythm with stuff being kind of shut down or
Yeah,
restricted?
it was interesting because it was kind of like it was very like kind of stop start. So it was like, okay, we're stopped now for 5 months. There's nothing is happening. You have to stay at home. You like it was like a 5 mile radius was allowed where you're allowed to leave unless you were doing your shopping for food. So it was like, and then it would, okay, we're starting something now. Oh wait, there was a spike in numbers of cases. Okay, we're stopping again. So it was kind of like a bit on and off for a while. Um, like for example, like when we were like kind of starting and stopping, um, my wife and I got married, and it was like the limit for our wedding was like 25 people. So it was like it was real like, and then the next like 2 weeks later, the limit would have been 50. So it was like really like play it by ear week on week. So it's kind of yeah, but now it's all back to normal now.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
yeah, it
that's
was kind of
crazy.
just.
When you joined the church team, then
Mhm.
what was the current state of affairs, if you will, as you came on board? Were you guys meeting in person? Was it a hybrid? Was it restricted? I mean, because I can't remember when you came on staff, but give me a picture for what the current church
Yeah.
rhythms looked like at that point.
So February 2022, it was definitely more people were coming back. We were allowed to meet fully at that time, but there was still a lot of people were still scared or still kind of at home mostly. So we were pre-producing videos for that. Like we were kind of finishing up that and starting to like in person stream our events then, and really because our service we were actually able to have a full service and actually have a worship service. Whereas before then we had to like the church had to pre-record all the worship and then just like in the studio just record our pastor speaking a sermon. So as soon as we were allowed to kind of come back in then February 22, we were able to just stream full services, everyone come back in, but we still saw like a good amount of people were still at home. But now like we're pretty much hitting capacity now in person. So that's been really encouraging seeing everyone come back into the building.
Yeah, that's great. You have such a unique opportunity and kind of role, Sam, that after getting to know you in the program,
Mm,
your wife is also on the team in terms of she's
mm.
a worship leader at the church. Remind me, is she on staff at all, or is it fully volunteer for her?
She's fully volunteer. So yeah, my wife Holly is fully volunteer, but she's the worship team lead. So she looks after all musicians, scheduling everyone in, selecting what songs they're going to sing, and helping build the musicianship on the team. Um, and previously, before Holly came on, it was actually our pastor had that role as well. So he was, leading services, speaking every Sunday. Um, and then looking after all the worship, selecting all the songs, making sure there's a team there. So it was really great when I came on staff and then he saw that she had experience there. He was like, amazing, you take that. I've too
Yeah,
much to do. So it was
yeah.
great to be able to like take that off his shoulders as well.
Yeah, I remember that first growth plan call, getting to know you and Holly. It was a great experience, kind of having both of you
Mm,
on the call because you were able to speak to production and kind of the tech side of the church, and then Holly was able to speak a little bit more towards the musicianship and kind of the worship team culture that she was kind of trying to lead as a volunteer. So it was
mm.
great to get to know you both. I want to go back to even initially before you guys enrolled in the program. How did you initially hear about Churchfront or worship ministry school? What was kind of the first thing that caught your attention there?
Well, me personally, like for being a volunteer in church, trying to like scramble my way through and learn things, I had been aware of Churchfront for years. Like I had been watching like Jake's early videos, and like anytime any video came out, I was like had the bell icon. And I was like, okay, what can I learn? And like I know there's other really incredible YouTubers that are like teaching so much to the church community that I'm just like on all of them, being like, what can I learn now about what's Black Magic brought out now, or how can I you know set up my buses better on the X32, like all those kind of standardized church equipment. I was like, how can I like learn a little more? So I'd been aware for a long time, and then when we came in here, um what I found was our tech team specifically, but also the worship team, didn't have any like formal training, and but didn't have like any training at all. So it was like, okay, how do we like, you know, teach the people that are already on the sound team what gain structure is? And like, how do we accelerate that? And how do we like, you know, our lyrics operators don't know, like had never heard of Pro Presenter. And I was like, I wanted to come in and bring those kind of standardized things to the team. So it was like, right, we could like get a little bit of training here and there, or we could just buy a training package for the team and get everyone up to speed really quickly. So that was like, I think for me, I was like, that was a no brainer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome to hear. I want to dive in there because that I would love to kind of allow our listeners the privilege of just hearing how you did that. It's not rocket science to a lot of folks, but in terms of leading some people who are already on the team, who have already been serving, you're stepping into a new role. You've never been in this kind of a role before. You have some outside
Mm.
experience, but you've never been vocationally employed. It's not even the norm. So there's not even like
Yeah.
a huge network of other tech directors full time at churches. So I want to hear your story about, you guys enrolled in worship ministry school and you've got access to some of the training or all the training there and some of the coaching portal there. But how did you lead your team through those initial goals that you had? Because you had goals of your own.
Mm.
As you know, on the tech side, Holly had some goals on the musicianship and the culture side. Like, how did you take those initial first steps with your team, and how did that play out for us? Kind of share your story there.
Yeah, so it was definitely a challenge. We had we had it like when I came on board, there was a like the production team was 4 people. It was 2 people on lyrics, 2 people on sound, and they rotated week on week. And when I saw that the way it was running, I was like, well, I wanted to grow the team because it wasn't enough people. Like our church is about 170 to 180 attendees weekly. So I was like, there's got to be more people in here that can help. But it was also, we wanted to grow our quality, which it was actually kind of tough. There was like one member of the team was like waiting for someone to come along that could take it over. And there was like the hard conversation about, well, maybe some people on the team, it mightn't be their gifting to be in production. They're just there because there's no one else to do it. Um, so when we came on board, we actually went. So there was the 4 team members, and now there's only 2 of that team are still on the team. But we brought in a new strategy to actively seek out team members, and we're actually at 9 now on the production team. And Holly grew her worship team from 5 up to 15, which was just a huge win. Like the people were in our church with the skill sets. I was looking for, you know, camera switching on a Sunday morning. Like, is there any youth that watch loads of videos? Like, perfect. Is there anyone that has a great eye for detail? Great, you'd be amazing on lyrics. Is there anyone with good tech backgrounds? Like, there was so many people in the church that are available to serve. But it was just, yeah, coming with that more focused way of like attacking the problems the church are facing, really helped to like bolster the team. So yeah, that was a it was definitely challenging when we're starting out and people were like, yeah, I'm not really going to do it, or well, maybe that person might be best served on the welcome team, or that might be where they're really well served better, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a challenge to start out, but yeah.
That okay, so we have to pause there because obviously you did something that worked and it won't work for everybody. Maybe it won't work for
Mm,
everybody, but share with us how or what you guys did to increase those numbers that much. Because you doubled your team, a little bit more than doubled on the production side with going from 4 to 9. And then,
mm,
Holly's team gosh, that thing kind of exploded in a way. Um, at some level, there had to have been something that you guys did specifically to see that result. How did you guys roll that out to your church and invite them into that experience?
Yeah, so we kind of sat down and we're like, right, what way can we make it as easy as possible for someone to join a team? That was kind of our main thing, was like, how do we make it as simple as possible for anyone to be on this team? So we were looking and it was like people just didn't know what you were asking them to do, and what they had to do on a Sunday morning. Like, what do I need to do? Like, I don't know. All I see is someone just throwing up faders, or I see someone just rocking up on stage and they already know how to play all the chords. Like, what do I need to do? So I was actually from you, Luke. You gave us a really good like model for like a role description, so we were very easily able to like lay out, well, on a Sunday morning, these are your responsibilities and these are your requirements for being on the team. you know and then when you had someone that was like, oh, I've never run sound before, you're like, here, follow this sheet, these are all your tick boxes. And they were like, okay, I think I might be able to try that. And then you bring them on, you're like, okay, this is what you do, you run them through on a practice, and then they're like, okay, everything's set up for me. Like, I was very certain on like the Tuesday practices to like set EQs, set gains, and then when they're starting out, all they have to do is just ride the faders, have all the cameras set up and lit correctly. Cool. All you need to do is just switch cameras and go live on YouTube. Um, and over time, then slowly releasing all the jobs I need to do onto them so that they can every week on week learn little bits. I know for Holly it was a real challenge because we only have one drummer. We now have a second drummer in the church that's able to come on board. He's playing this Sunday, but like she just had to be like, okay, our drummer he can't. He's an elder of the church, he's a director of the church, and he's the drummer. It's like he can't keep giving more. So it was like, actually, Gary, we'd like if you only played 1 to 2 times a month, and we're actually just going to do more acoustic sets and just be okay with the quality the quality being lower, but we're going to just grow our musicianship and grow how we play together. And it just made it easier for her to be like, okay, I'm going to play keys, new guitarist, you're going to come in and just play along with me, and we're going to just make it real simple. But over time, then they just grew in confidence.
What a cool culture to hear about. I mean, just in the sense that, Holly has said, hey, we don't need to look like every other worship team out there. We can strip it down a little bit to be more simple. And then that quality, because you're playing in such a more relaxed environment, becomes a little bit tighter, tighter of a band, tighter of a community, and then as you scale up, you've got this awesome foundation of musicians that didn't get thrown into like such a busy environment with a bunch of other team members and big band and intimidation, that kind of thing. If they're not used to it, that can be a really hard roadblock to overcome. And same thing for you. I mean, this is a rant that I would go on often, but for people who think that the job of a tech director is the job is to be the best or the most knowledgeable or the best at executing technology. It's actually, the opposite. Yes, you need to know some of that stuff, but you're actually more of a team leader, a people manager, and an equipper, a trainer. So, when it comes down to how you're effective in your role, Sam, I love hearing that you go above and beyond to set EQs, compression, set the cameras, light them correctly so that your volunteers come in for the first or second or third time and they get quick wins in those roles. They feel really good operating those, and then you can inspire and equip them to take the next step in their understanding and in their execution. What a cool thing to hear about. I'm so happy to share that story. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with our audience.
Thanks.
What has changed about your worship team? Let's go back to kind of when you guys got into the Accelerator program. Paint our listeners a picture of kind of what was the situation then, with your songs, with your team, kind of your team dynamic, kind of the size and what people are playing there, and then how it's changed since then.
Yeah, so I suppose for the worship team, like kind of like this time last year, the way they kind of ran was like, we come in on a Sunday morning, we select 5 songs, we play them together because we all know them. So like that was like, first off, like a huge barrier to joining the team was like the repertoire of the church was like 200 to 300 songs of like the worship team. They knew how to play all the songs, songs from 100 years ago up until today. Like they knew all of them. So one thing that like it was kind of funny because when Holly came on board, she was like, "Oh, does the church know this song or that song?" And the worship team were like, "Yeah, they know that song. Cool." She'd play it and they'd be like, "Never heard that before," because they have so many. They've so many songs that that the church they just play. So Holly was very sure. She was like, "Okay, let's strip it back. Let's take 25 songs for this 3 to 4 month period, um, and let's just, as a band, let's learn these really, really, really well. Let's play together really well, even if it means we're not playing all the fancy parts. We're not like playing crazy licks on pianos. Once we're just hitting those chords well, playing it simply, and just letting the church learn all these songs. And some of the songs, I wouldn't say they needed to learn, but there were some new ones, but a lot of them were kind of more classics. Um, which are kind of our churches has quite an older congregation, which much prefer those. It kind of really helped the team learn them, and then the church learn them as well together. And now, actually, I think this week is the first week of an up. It's an updated list, but it's like maybe 8 songs have come out and 8 songs have come in, and maybe 4 to 5 of those songs the church already like would know. So it's maybe like 3 or 4 new songs. So we're still like keeping it a little fresh while keeping most of it pretty standard.
Yeah, what was the rollout like that? I mean, I'm picking up, I think, what I understand it to be, but did she did she kind of introduce a song list of 20 songs and say, okay, we need to learn these? And then did she introduce one per week? Or how did she actually roll out the kind of simplified song list in the midst of the 300 song repertoire that you guys had at the time?
Yeah. So she kind of took, so we had a like at the start of September there last, we kind of sat down with the team and we're like, hey, we're gonna go through and learn. We had like, 25 songs. We're like, we as a band are gonna commit to learning these songs only. So that, every Tuesday practice, the worship leader who's on selects from that list. But she did like look at what are the most common songs the church does, and took from like most of that, and then had maybe 3 new songs. So the church knew the songs already. It was just like, us as a band, we've got new team members coming on. We're actively searching for new singers. We're actively searching for new pianists, new guitarists. Um, it was just like, how can we just all together just learn this really, really simply? So it was just a huge win when they came and were like, okay, it's just the only thing we need to now learn is, well, what key does this singer like to sing it in? Which made it so much easier than, oh, it's a brand new set list next week. It's a brand new set list the following week. And for that new person, well, now I've got 15 to 20 songs to learn in a month versus 15 to 20 songs to learn in 3 to 4 months. And that's all we're going
Right.
to play, you know?
Yep. So good. How did you guys, both of you guys really, how did you guys add to your teams? I mean, I know you had the job descriptions, you had the kind of role descriptions and kind of the onboarding steps that they would take. Did you guys do like, was it announcements that got that many people in the door to join the team? Was it some other method that you guys used? I know we probably talked about some of the recruiting methods we talked about in worship ministry school, but what
Mm.
was the kind of bullet for you guys that got people through the door and interested?
Yeah, it was kind of funny. We actually did a last summer we did a like highlighting all the teams morning where we all like spoke about what teams there are, and we all got like a 5 minute slot on the Sunday morning. And actually that I actually didn't get anyone from that. It was kind of just like an open to the church. Hi, I look after technology. We look after making sure everyone's heard well on a Sunday morning. If you want to join, talk to me after the service. And that actually got the like such low engagement. What actually got good engagement was me looking around at the church at who was available. So like there was one guy in our church that he wasn't serving in our church in any capacity. He was coming. He was part of a small group, really engaged in the church. And I was like, I just met him on a Sunday and I was chatting to him, and it turned out he was like studying a PhD in AI. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a walk in the park to teach you how to stream onto YouTube and use a stream deck and like, cut all the cameras. Like that's not going to be any problem. And I was like, we'd love if you were able to, use your gifts and help us. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll come. And it was like
Yeah.
directly like, so I had our youth pastor. He's like looks after all the youth, young adults, all the children. And I was like, Darren, do you know anyone? And he was like, so he was actually also in a season of, I'm trying to get all of my young adults serving on teams, because he wanted them to all just be investing in the church. And he was like, he was actively searching, so he was grabbing his people and being like, feed into here if you're the right fit. So I got some great people from there, but I also was just searching throughout the entire church. Like our admin of like our church admin, she joined as a lyric operator because I knew she had an incredible attention to detail. And I was like, hey, Kathy, do you think you'd be good? Do you think you'd like this? And she was like, well, I'll try. First 2 Sundays, she was really scared, kind of like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. And now she's like, I can't wait to do it. I just get such a thrill from when I hit those lyrics bang on time. I get such a thrill. And I'm like, it's just such a win,
We need more people like Kathy. We
Yeah.
need more people like her. And this guy that this PhD student of AI, man, the Stream Deck is like toddler
Yeah.
language for him. He's like, come on, keyboard shortcuts, macros, like let's
Yeah.
go. Come on, let's take it to the
That's
next
easy,
level.
yeah.
I'll talk to him in 10 years when he's like revolutionized the way that you guys do your worship services with AI.
Yeah,
That'd
so
be
no,
great.
it's been amazing. Just actively searching for the right people and being like, I see something in that person. I think they'd be excellent. And then when they're like, oh, you think I could do it? I'm like, yeah, you do it really well. And they're like, okay, I'll join.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's just yeah, it's been brilliant. Yeah.
Before we continue on with the video, a quick word from our sponsor, the Worship Ministry School Accelerator program. You may not know this, but in addition to all the YouTube content we're creating here at Churchfront, we also partner with local church worship and production ministries to help them hit their ministry goals. Over the past 4 years, we've worked personally with hundreds of worship ministries around the globe. We've helped churches navigate upgrading their worship tech, building better systems to grow their team of volunteers, as well as address any knowledge or skill gaps required for modern day worship ministry. When you join the Accelerator program, you get access to our entire library of online, on-demand courses, and you get unlimited access to our team of Churchfront coaches. To learn more about joining the program, click the link below this video to apply and schedule your free strategy session today. Now let's get back to the video.
Yeah, so to recap that, I mean, for the listeners, have conversations with people in your church. This conversation with a PhD student, just a conversation, just chatting it up, just having conversation, getting to know the people who you're doing life with in life of your church. Yeah. It's also leveraging other ministry partners like your youth pastor and talking to them about their vision and kind of coming together on what they're trying to do and what you're trying to do and trying to find that meeting place that can really be an impactful way of recruiting. And what I did hear is that kind of the public forum or the stage moment where you announce that you're looking to, grow the team and you're trying to cast vision, it wasn't as effective as just your everyday conversations with people that you're doing life with. So really encouraging. Sam, are you an extroverted person or are you introverted by nature?
Definitely introverted. Both me and my wife would definitely consider ourselves introverted. In the right setting, we can exert ourselves a bit more, but definitely, like personally, I'd be much more comfortable working on my own and that kind of environment. So it's definitely a challenge working in ministry and learning this.
What would you say to somebody who's similar in that they're pretty introverted and they're in this role, but they're hearing you and I talk about having conversations with tons of people in your church? Like, how would you encourage them to lean into that in a healthy way, in a way that doesn't make them become somebody different, but allows them to be themselves and still recruit or add to the team?
I suppose I just having confidence in yourself and having confidence in your ability. Like if you're in a production or tech role, it's very common for us to be like, we're behind the soundboard and we're down here, like, or we're streaming and we're clicking away. But it's just like having confidence to explain what you're doing to people. Like, the people in your church want you to win, and they want you to to make things good. They want you to do things well, and they want you, because when you win, the entire church wins. Like, uh if you're making a stream, or you're doing sound in the room, or you're doing the lyrics, like, when you're doing that well, everyone has a great experience. So it's like the people in your church aren't as scary as you might think they are. Like, I would, like, especially, like, I'm new in this church, and I didn't know anyone. And this church is like, there's people in this church that have been attending the church for 3 generations, and they're locked in here and they're in their group. But it's like, when they see the stuff going well, they're like, oh, how can we help that? Like, I've got members of our church that are 85, and they're coming up being like, that was that was really good. That sounded so good on Sunday, and they want us to win. So it's like, then when you're able to be like, oh, well, would you help us win in that sense? And people are like, yeah, maybe I would, or I'll think about it. Like, it's just giving them the encouragement to be like, no, you can do this too.
Yeah, that's so good. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm,
I want to talk and shift gears a little bit on your kind of your tech goals in the church. So you guys are kind of in a unique season where when we started having conversation, once you've been in the program, you were already, I think, thinking about some of these updates you guys were looking to do
mm,
with, through an integration company. You had a couple pieces of gear that you wanted to upgrade. I want to kind of share your experience with the listeners. So, can you paint us a picture of what your goals were as you stepped in? Some of the maybe the pain points that you had that we talked about in worship ministry school, but also that you just knew coming in.
mm.
We've got to fix, update, adjust what we're doing with this to accomplish this goal.
Yeah. So when I came on board in the church, because there hadn't been a significant, like, tech team looking after stuff, it kind of, a lot of the equipment was quite tired and old. Our speakers were placed in poor positions in the room. Like, our room is actually circular, and the speakers are on the side walls. So if you're in the middle of the room, it's a real poor experience. Um, so, like, things like that, speakers were old, outdated equipment, outdated software. So I already, like, coming in, knew the gist of what we wanted to do, but there were other challenges, like, um, we were asked, like, is there a way that we can get the live stream live in person in certain rooms? So if there's a mother and baby that need to go out, that they can catch it live and they're not watching it 20 seconds later on YouTube. Um, so there was, like, certain challenges that I knew how to overcome, like we need to just talk to an integration company and get solid speakers hung in the center of the room for an even picture. Or I knew we need ProPresenter. The software we're using is just outdated, and it's not going to help us, give us lower thirds. It's not going to allow us to, have announcements running in other rooms. It's not going to allow us to do all the things we need to do. So I had a fair picture of what, like, we needed to do, but it was like trying to align all of that and get the right pieces of gear that I knew was definitely going to work, that you guys really helped us with. Like, I knew, we can stream with this video switcher, but maybe this video switcher might allow us to do that and a whole lot more and just give us room to grow. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's dive into that because that's I think a goal that a lot of churches that we're talking to have coming in is they want their feeds, in certain places. They want, and I
Mm.
say feed, their program feed, their live stream feed, their broadcast, whatever kind of language you might be used to as a listener or viewer. But there's that option, like you said, to stream it, and then you could have a smart TV or something pull it up on YouTube, but you're watching a
Mm.
delay. So walk me through your decision making process as you guys end up settling on the constellation, the Black Magic constellation.
Yeah.
We actually have a YouTube video on our channel from you giving us a little
Oh yeah.
walkthrough of that you know deployment of that strategy. So walk me
Mhm.
through, like, how did you decide on the constellation? What were some of the things that you were hoping you could do with it, or that you needed it to do in your specific space?
Yeah, so prior to coming on board with you guys, we where I was like looking at all the options. I was unaware. I think the constellation was new enough at the time, um, but I was like unaware of any solution that could do both video switching and video distribution in one unit. So I was looking at like what Blackmagic video distributors that will be able to cut our feed into multiple spaces can we get. And then I like hopped on a call with Adam to discuss that, and he was like, "Oh, the Constellation 2ME is out, and it's like that gave us like exactly what we needed because we were looking to do like key and fill lower thirds. We were looking to do announcement layer, uh, obviously our main projection, our lyrics for our musicians. So that's 5 feeds out of Pro Presenter. So that's already more than what we were using in 810 Mini before. That's already more feeds that we need in. Um, we had like 3 cameras going, and obviously now that video switcher is a 20 in, so we have, I don't think we'll ever hit 20. What's that, 15 camera feeds? I don't think we'll ever
Right.
hit that, but the room is there. But what was really unique about that switcher was that it had 12 clean feeds out that you can set to anything. So we have all our projector is running directly out of it, and it only sees input one, and our back TV for the musicians, that only sees input two. And like we were able to just cut all the feeds into exactly what we needed. So like for example, on Sunday, we Sunday 2 weeks ago, we had a baptism Sunday, and we have a baptistry on our stage. So that like the floor comes up and we fill that with water. And we got such great praise that from our congregation that we weren't able to do this before, where we just had a camera on stage and we were able to send our second mix effect to the main screen and set up camera 7 just went, and they were able to see live the people getting baptized directly, where they didn't have to like reach up out of their seats to like look on the stage. So that was just like such a win that we had the 2 feeds. That one feed was going online and was a certain cut, and then in person we had a completely different cut,
Yeah.
which was awesome.
And you guys don't normally do iMag in your services, do you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so
Our room
that's
is our room is real small, but it gives you the option. So we were cutting from camera 1, which is our pro presenter in our lyrics or our presentation, and then we just cut to camera 7, which was the iMag, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, which is, I
Um,
mean, I think that's a huge benefit of having the 2ME setup, because we face the exact same, I guess the exact same roadblock. We just kind of said no to upgrading our switcher for the past year. We're probably going to take that step here in a little bit, but that that desire to put in a room where you can't see stuff like a baptism, or you can't see, maybe your people do child dedications or baptisms,
mm,
or maybe they do a special like prayer moment in the middle of service with some missionaries. Like, anything could be captured with a camera, and then you could put that up on your screen. But most of the
yeah.
time it's tied into your presentation computer by default as like the only output. And so you
Mm,
really have to figure out, okay, how do I unpatch everything and repatch a camera feed, or do you consider something like a 2ME that would just allow you to throw
yeah.
up what you
It's just
need when you need it, where you need it? So simple.
Yeah, it was really easy. Like, so we had previously we had our streaming. Actually, the room I'm in now, which is like upstairs. It's away from the sanctuary, and we had a stream there, and then we had lyrics and sound in the sanctuary. But it was actually a suggestion from you guys that we took on board, which was bring the the presentation person, bring that setup up with the video system, so that we can just like have it all integrated there. And then on a Sunday, if we need to, if there's an announcement or there's a certain thing, we can pull what you're seeing in person on the screen. We can pull that and send it to the live stream if we need to.
Yeah.
Um, so that
It's
saves
pretty
me a whole lot of
slick.
time, like remaking verses for lower thirds or anything. We can just like have, the person's face and slides all together and just throw that up on for the live stream to watch.
Yeah, because what you're talking about, and just so our listeners are, up to date, because it is kind of hard to visualize this in an audio
Mm.
format, especially. But
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sam's stream, they instead of doing like a true lower thirds, key and fill lower thirds, maybe lyrics on the bottom of the screen.
We do that for the lyrics.
Right, you do that
Yeah.
for the lyrics, but during like the pastor's sermon, you actually take almost like a picture in picture. You've
Mm.
designed like a background, and then you put one feed in a square of the camera feed of your
Hmm.
pastor, and then you put another feed right next to it over that background with the sermon slides. So
Yeah.
you can use the same format that you're given, or the default format in ProPresenter, to put both feeds up
Mm.
on that kind of program output with the background. Looks really nice. It looks very sharp and clean. I'm really
Mm.
impressed with it. And that's normally you have to kind of pick and choose. You would have to
Yeah.
say, I either want the camera feed or I want the sermon, slide or
Yeah.
whatnot to be full screen. And this gives you a lot of flexibility. You are kind of a prime example of kind of an early adapter with that constellation. You bought it pretty quickly after it came out.
Mm.
What was the
Yeah.
learning curve like for you? I'm curious. Did you run
It,
into any roadblocks? Was it intuitive
we
enough that you got going pretty quick?
I got going pretty quick. Roadblocks were creating my own SDI cabling. Um, the first few cables kind of came apart a little bit, and then I learned. Um, but it wasn't too much of an adaptation, especially if you're in the Blackmagic ecosystem, because it is a Blackmagic unit, so it's still the same software. I was just more blown away by when I got it, how much your outputs can change. So you've 12 outputs, as well as, like, if you're used to streaming in OBS or ProPresenter with an A10 Mini, it's the same, where you can just USB-C into your computer, um, which is great. And then that frees up another output if you need it. Um, but it was just it wasn't too bad, the learning curve. It was just more like figuring out, like, so what you were describing there is it's called super source, and it was like learning, well, what way do we want to use that, or how do we utilize it, um and then like learning what are our possibilities with it. That was kind of our main learning curve, was like, wow, this unit can do more than what we need. Well, how much of it do we need?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's pretty, I mean, it's not limitless, but
Mm.
there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of
Yeah, going
potential.
from a four video mixer, like A10 Mini, to this was, it was what we needed, but it was a big jump from what we had.
Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully,
Mm.
though, I mean, again, and this is always a question when you're buying hardware, and we would
Mm.
recommend this as coaches, but you always want to think about the ecosystem, because what I heard you
Mm.
say about Black Magic is that the nice thing is it's still the same software. When you go
Yeah.
in to edit things, it's like whether you're using an A10 Mini or a Constellation 2ME, you are looking at basically the same software, just with more options, and
Yeah.
so you've got that's definitely something to consider if you're looking at a new piece of gear or you're talking to an integrator. You really want to be clear or understand what the ecosystem allows for you to do, or what the limitations are. Do you have to
Yeah.
learn a whole new tool? Do you have to learn a whole new system to get up and running? And for you, the answer was no. You just got to
Yeah.
see more flexibility, more options at your fingertips. What is the kind of update with your speakers? I mean, have you guys talked to I think you guys are in the process of making that step. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, our trussing just came in yesterday morning. So we're getting new speakers installed in the next kind of 2 to 3 weeks. Where we went with Nexo speakers. There's a company in Northern Ireland that, they work a lot with corporate, but what we really liked is they were, also focused on churches. So they do a lot of installs, just screens, projectors, and then, I from the production company that I worked with previously, they use Nexo speakers, which I really liked. They had just they're super clear for speakers. So that's like, sorry, when I say speakers, I mean for like our pastor, um,
Yeah.
which I really liked. And they're an integrator with that company. They're speakers that are handmade in France. So for us being in Ireland, it was a real easy one to get. And it was just really, really nice to get on board with them. So they're coming in the next kind of 2 to 3 weeks. They're waiting on one more part to come, and then they're going to install, which I'm just so excited about
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
finally have clear sound in the room.
It'll be a whole new world.
Yeah,
What,
make
based on your experience with your room, with your, conversations with the integrators and things like that, what would you give as advice to people who are out there? We have lots of people who subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel that are in uniquely shaped rooms like that.
mm,
Circular, maybe a weird, alcove on the side, or maybe they're in like a, just some random like warehouse that just they feel like they're limited. They can't do the traditional either left right point source or the left right line array. What would you what piece of advice would you give to somebody who maybe is intimidated by the integration process, and what questions should they ask? How should they approach it? What were some cautionary steps you took to make sure that you found what you needed?
I suppose for us, it was like it helped that I already knew sound and I knew what I was talking about when I was going to them. But if you don't, and you know someone that does, there might be another local church, someone nearby that you can talk to that is like because I knew stuff, but then I also had friends that I was able to go to be like, hey, like you've also run sound in this room. What do you think? And we had a fair idea of what we wanted to do going into it. But if you don't, if there is another church nearby and there is a sound engineer there with a bit more experience, to talk to them first to get an idea of what is possible. So for us, we're lucky that the room is small enough that we don't really need to put in any kind of sound paneling around. It's just where the speakers were just put in the wrong position. So that was kind of the main thing, was just learning from the integrator was what is the right position, and then bringing that knowledge to someone that isn't that integrator to be like, what do you think? And they're like, no, that looks right. They know what they're talking about. Which also is like our finance team, when there is a budget request this large, also separately went to another sound engineer to talk, and they were like, you should have done this a long time ago. Which was like, I was like, whew, I wasn't sure who they were talking to, but they did. They also agreed.
You don't want to be the new guy coming in specking out a brand new PA and
Yeah,
just to spend money, right?
yeah, exactly.
Any,
I was
any
like,
church staff is wise to get a second opinion.
yeah, because where the speakers were, they weren't even high up. It was like right close to people's ears if you're in the wings. But if you're in the center, you're like only hearing the drums,
Yeah,
because that's like the acoustics in the room. Like that's all you're hearing. It's like I've had people come up being like, "Can you turn down the piano?" And I'm like, "But other people can't hear it."
yeah, man.
So yeah, it's gonna be nice to have a clean image. We're gonna hang it from the top and point it at the people, but have it like the right is gonna be like 3 meters to the right and 3 meters to the left, which is gonna be pretty even in the room, which is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. So you guys just end up going with a point source
Yeah,
speaker kind of layout.
yeah.
No kind of line array in the room. It's just two
No,
speakers
it's
left and right.
two subs, two tops. They're
Cool.
actually going to be 10-inch tops and 15-inch subs.
Sweet.
That are going to be kind of lined together. Not really line array, but it's basically that. It's just the room isn't large enough. Now that we're kind of hitting capacity, our foyer might have to start getting more seating. So we
Yeah.
might need to put speakers there as well, like before the doors, potentially.
That's a great season to be in. It's exciting to
Mm.
see people getting involved and engaged with what you're doing, and just seeing people back in the building, after a couple of years of kind of the back and forth, start and stop
Mm.
mentality. It's really nice to hear about the growth and momentum. And
Yeah.
what I'm curious, and just to kind of update our listeners, what are you working on now? Beyond the PA stuff, what's on your quote unquote growth plan for the next year?
Um,
Goals, things you're working on, share with us.
I suppose kind of things we're growing on is, so my kind of plan for the next year is growing my team so my team has grown, but it's now making sure that they can run on their own. So every Sunday I'm doing something or I'm overseeing everything. So it's like I actually said to my wife, I was like, because I used to play drums in my old church, and I was like, I need to force my team to be on their own and to just make the mistake. And after the Sunday, we'll watch back the stream and see how can we do it better, because I'm like constantly running and trying to fix in the moment. So I was like, Holly, can you just schedule me on drums some Sunday? And she was like, okay, yeah. I was like, I need to, even if I'm sitting in the room, someone pulls me and was like, oh, fix this thing. And I'm like, I need to allow it to, even for the quality to drop a little bit, so that my team now can just learn to just run it by themselves every Sunday on Sunday. So I'm on holidays, I'm not available to help you guys, um, to make it just a lot more sustainable long term.
Yeah, that's good. And you're so close to that. I mean, I like your
Mm,
approach of just forcing yourself out of it for a second to
mm,
kind of get a gauge for where you guys are at, but then it'll reveal the gaps that are there in
yeah.
training and equipping, and you'll be able to then fill the gaps, but you probably won't know them if you're always back there with your team. And
Yeah.
what a healthy thing to do, and allow you, again, I heard you, so you can take holiday, you can be on vacation, and hopefully you can, have a good work life kind of rhythm. I wouldn't call it balance, but definitely a rhythm where you're not there 52 Sundays. You're not leaving your
Mm.
team dependent on you. You're equipping them for the work of the ministry. That's really good
But
to hear.
yeah, it's also like, I found sometimes an event is asked like last minute on a Friday night, being like, "Hey, can you do this thing?" And I'm not available, but I also don't have it. My team mightn't be ready to be available either. So it's like
Yeah.
making sure that we can be as flexible as possible. Yeah.
That's so good. As we wrap up, maybe just a couple more questions here
Yeah.
from
Shoot.
my perspective. I'd love for you to share, as somebody who's stepped into this role, having not done it before, what would be some guidance or some advice to somebody who is either interested in being a production leader at a church or tech leader at a church, or who has just stepped in as well? Like, anything you've learned over the past, year and a half to 2 years of your experience that you would say, man, I would encourage you to do this, or, here's how to kind of get better results. Like, share your insights there.
Um, I would say sit down with your leaders, and this is actually something I'm trying to do now, which I wish I did at the start, was sit down with your leaders and ask, what are the goals and what are the wins? So what are the goals of the church? Like, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to, you know, get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube? Okay, that means that every week we're going to make YouTube content all the time. Or is our goal to grow our team? Okay, that means we're going to do team drives. We're going to actively search for team. We're going to make it as easy as possible for them to get on board. So it's like, what are our goals? Okay, how can I best achieve them? I think that was kind of, so like when I came on board, it was kind of just more like, oh, make sure we're live on Sunday. And like, I personally found that difficult, where it was just an arbitrary goal of just like, go live. Cool. I did that. What's next?
You can pull out your
Because
phone and go live on Facebook and say, all right,
yeah,
this is what you paid me
because
full time
that's
for.
what it was before. That's what they were used to. And then when they were like, no, we're going to invest and get someone full time, but then they were still like, well, we don't know what's better. So it's like, well, here's the possibilities. What of those possibilities, what would you like?
Yeah, that's
I suppose they're
good.
good questions to sit down with your, I don't know, whatever way your church works, but your lead pastor or your elders or whatever.
Yeah. What did you mean when you said, get the wins? Share with us kind of either from your perspective, or what do you mean by get the win?
So it depends like what win your church sees. So is it that our production is just getting really high quality? Is that like for new people coming in, that's really attractive? Is the win that we're seeing new people come into church because of our online presence? Or is the win that we're just looking after our people really well? We're making sure that everyone is serving in a position. So maybe people mightn't be excellent at production, but we just want people to serve on teams, and that's our win. Awesome. Maybe the production mightn't be top notch like you're going to a concert, but we just have people on team serving Sunday on Sunday. So it's kind of just what's your church's view of a win,
Yeah.
and what do you guys want to do?
Yeah. Yeah, we have that goal a lot in worship ministry school. A student will come in and say that they want to increase the standard of their excellence, or they want to
Mm,
make their quality better. And ultimately, when because one of those first calls is the growth plan call, where we kind of reverse engineer the steps that will get you to your
mm,
goal. And
yeah.
it's always part of the conversation. Okay, if you want to increase your standard, you have to have a standard or a rubric or a kind of a win that you are holding them to. And so then we kind of discern, we talk about the culture of the church. What's the win of the ministry? What's the win of the church at large? And then how do we create a rubric or um, I don't know, just kind of a standard that you can keep them accountable to?
Mm,
Because, saying that you want to increase your standard of excellence with no clarity on what that actually looks like practically
yeah.
will just result in ambiguity moving forward. So,
Mm,
yeah, I love that you said, really drilling down to what that win is for your church, and kind of the different options you have there in tech, especially because it is kind of it can be a both and, but a lot of churches have a couple, they might have one or the other. They might say, we
yeah.
want to be the highest quality, you know, um, most current and relevant, qua- um, content online, and they want it to look good, sound good. They want to be vibrant. And then other churches really just want their people to be involved, and the quality is kind of a secondary goal. And so it's really important to
Mm,
know that in your role, especially Sam, just as you kind of lead your teams, as you think about how to steward your week. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
yeah. Yeah. Thanks so
Okay.
much.
Last question. Besides worship ministry school and kind of the courses that you leveraged, what are some other tools that you have found useful for your role, for your team? Any other resources out there that you feel like have been beneficial?
Mm, what resources? It's kind of hard because it's like stuff I've just learned over so much time. Uh, Obviously, there's loads of just YouTube channels I use, but resources we use. One thing that has been really beneficial for our team that I'm sure most people already have, but our church had never used it before, and it was actually Holly said when she was joining, she was like, "I'm not going to lead the worship team unless the church gets a planning center." I was a super simple. Most people already know what it is, but our church was just like running our teams on WhatsApp groups and who's available. And Holly was like, it's just so inefficient. So she was like, I'm not going to lead this team unless the church invests and just gets planning center, just regular planning center for the minimum amount or minimum number of people. And she was like, so that we can just be all on board. Every team member gets an email on Monday morning saying, hey, you've got practice tomorrow, and they get an email to say, you're scheduled. Here are the songs, and then I'm able to just throw in my team, and they know Tuesday night I come down for practice. I already know what songs they're doing, so I can be listening to them midweek. I can be knowing exactly when the choruses come in and when the bridge comes in. So when I'm doing lyrics, and someone can be like, "Oh, I'm listening. Oh, there's going to be a keys part there. Cool. I know to cut to keys for that section." And that just keeps us all just constantly in the groove and not just waiting till Sunday to be like, oh well, I hope they're doing this song, or I hope that kind of might be happening, and we can all just know this is happening here, this is happening here, these are going to be the announcements, this is who's speaking, and just keeps everyone on team just on board.
Yep.
Yeah.
You might be thinking to yourself as a listener, man, I don't have time to set all that up. But if you're a volunteer worship leader, Planning Center probably saves people 20 hours a
Oh,
week, if not more. I
so
mean,
much time. Yeah.
so
Like, yeah.
it is the cream of the
Awesome.
crop for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Sam, if people want to check out your church, like, and I would recommend that people do if they are curious about what that 2ME look is, if they're curious about your room and your space and kind of the steps that you've taken with your teams, where can they find your church? It's in Ireland, so you can't, I mean, you could take a trip across the pond and go visit in person, but where
Yeah.
online could they find you pretty easily?
So our website is dec.ie. And our YouTube is just search DEC Church Dublin.
Yep.
That's our YouTube channel, and you'll just get us straight away. And yeah, come check out our stream. I hope we're doing a good job.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I know you are. I've checked in on it pretty regularly, just
Mm,
seeing the steps that you guys have taken. It's really encouraging to watch, and it's not all about the stream, but it does give
mm,
us as coaches and leaders of worship ministry school, it gives us a good litmus test for where things are at and what you've been able to
yeah.
accomplish. So really proud of you and Holly and the work that you've done. It has really paid off, and you can definitely sense, even myself watching online, you can definitely sense that there is a shift happening, and
Mm,
the energy is carrying through, I think, the broadcast, which is exactly what you hope for. So I appreciate
mm.
all the work that you're putting into it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Luke.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show, Sam. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.